Welcome to Blueprint Radio. I'm your host, Martin Williams. Here we help you create a blueprint for your life. So let's build. And welcome to Blueprint Radio. My name is Martin Williams. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. You may do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. All the links to the podcast can be found at guidedexpressions.com/podcast with an S, or wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. So today I wanted to talk about something that I saw on social media yesterday, and it was related to, it was a video of Russell Wilson. Now, for those of you that don't know who Russell Wilson is a Super Bowl winning quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks, and he is currently injured. Right? He's currently hurt because he broke his finger, and that injury is going to keep him out for roughly 6 to 8 weeks. The reason that I'm making this video is that he was on the field. He traveled with this team when they played Pittsburgh on Sunday night about 2 days ago. And before the game, he was on the field running through drills. Now, this is not uncommon, right? Because sometimes players like to stay in, reasonable shape, even when they're injured. So this is not an uncommon thing in sports. But what he did, the way that he did his drills was a little uncommon, and it caused people to post it. And I'll get into the reaction in a little bit. So he started doing these drills as if he was going to do a 2-minute drill. So the 2-minute drill, for people who don't watch football, right, is basically when you have to run an accelerated version of the game plan, right? And it's a 2-minute drill because you usually have less than 2 minutes before either the half is over or the game is over. So he's running through a drill, but he's doing it by himself, right? So he's talking, he's talking to people. He's going through all the paces. He's going through all the different things that he would normally do if he was on the field playing a real game, but instead he's doing it by himself. And he's doing it, he's talking to people, he's pointing around, and I'm going to post a video on my IG page as well as on YouTube. But I think it's interesting that it wasn't interesting to me that he did it because I understood why he was doing it. And any high performing athlete is going to understand why he was doing that, right? If you ever studied high performance, you understand exactly what he's doing. He's doing muscle memory, right? He's, basically reinforcing that muscle memory. He's going through the act of what he wants to happen in the real game. He's practicing like he wants to play. And every person should be doing that, whether you play sports or not, right? But the way that he was ridiculed and the way that he was made fun of was really, really interesting because a lot of people didn't understand what he was doing. And a lot of people, he looked silly to a lot of people. He looked like, maybe he should be seen by a mental health professional, right? To the uninitiated, right? When you're uninitiated, these things look silly. These things look crazy. But when you study mindset and study performance, like I have, and like a lot of people have, we totally got what he was doing. And I loved it. To me, it was art. It was like artwork, right? And so what I wanted this podcast to be about was not so much about that per se, but really what it did was that it brought out something, because one of the bigger critics of what he was doing was a former player, a man that had been in the league for over 9 years, and he was actually drafted 3 years before Wilson and played against Wilson on multiple occasions. And he basically tweeted to get TF out of the fake huddle, right? Because basically Russell Wilson was going through a huddle, but he was by himself again, right? He was going through a huddle, and he came out of the huddle, and he was, everything was as if he was in a real game. It was really, I know earlier I said it wasn't interesting. I guess the better way to say it is that it wasn't strange to me, because it was interesting, actually. But I thought it was interesting also that a former player was making fun of him. Now, this guy made it to the NFL. I would definitely call him a high performer. He's definitely someone who accomplished a lot, but still he made fun of him. Why is that? Because in life, there are two voices that are always speaking to you. And the one voice you listen to is going to be the determining factor of where you end up. Voice number one is the person you want to become, because that person already exists. That person's speaking to you. If they didn't exist, they wouldn't be speaking to you. The second voice is the critic. And the critic can be external or internal. It really doesn't matter. But both are going to be talking at the same time. And a lot of people experience confusion because they try to listen to both. And you can't listen to the critic, because the critic hasn't accomplished what the person you want to become has accomplished. If you listen to the critic, then you get what the critic has. Now, the critic, in this case, the player, I'm not saying he was a bad player or anything like that, but he hasn't accomplished what Russell Wilson has accomplished. Russell Wilson won a Super Bowl, was one throw away from winning another one, and has been named one of the best players in the league, going to something called the Pro Bowl over, I think, 6 times. He's been MVP. He's made over $100 million a year, has a beautiful family. He's winning in every area of his life. Now, I don't know anything about this other guy, but I'm pretty sure he's not doing what Russell Wilson has done, right? I do know that much. So it's really, and there's no slight to the other guy. Like, the other guy is, he's done nothing to me. There's no reason for me to criticize him. I'm not criticizing him, but he's really emblematic of the voice, that critical voice that is talking to all of us. That critic is talking to you. And again, sometimes the critic's external, sometimes the critic's internal, but it doesn't matter. You have to ignore both. I promise you that Russell Wilson does not care what this man thinks. I promise you that. I promise you Russell Wilson is not spending 1 ounce of energy concerned about what he thinks or what anyone else who felt the need to make fun of him or laugh at him or make memes of him. He doesn't care. And you don't get to where he gets to by caring about what people think, but more importantly, caring about what that critic thinks. Because the person that Russell Wilson wants to become is telling him, this is what you need to do while you're injured. You can't just sit around and watch. You've got to get in the game. You've got to keep your muscles moving and train your mind and continue to keep your mind trained just like you keep your body trained, right? Russell Wilson has to work out even though his finger's broken because he's got to keep his conditioning up, right? And you got to train your mind as much as your body. A lot of people, go to the gym or do their exercise every morning, but how much of that is mental exercise? How are you exercising your mind? Because the mind is really what's going to determine how far you get to in life. So what you've got to understand is that, number one, is really 4 takeaways that I had from this. Is that, number one, the greats do what ordinary people can't or won't understand or even laugh at, right? Number 2, don't try to explain greatness to anyone who doesn't want to be great. If you don't want to be great, I can't explain greatness to you, because greatness involves doing things that you might think look strange or don't look cool, but that's why he has a Super Bowl ring and most of the world doesn't, right? That's why he has the life that he has and most of the world doesn't, because he does things that no one else will do. It's really simple, right? If you want what few people have, you have to do things that few people will do. But if you try to explain that to a person that doesn't want to be great, they don't get it. Number 3, you have to train your mind as much as, if not more than your body. I just said that. You've got to train your mind. And you've got to keep your mind engaged. You've got to keep your mind sharp, whether you feel like doing it or not. And finally, it's okay if other people don't understand your process, because the results will speak for themselves. I've already gone over Russell Wilson's results. I have results. So, I know that some of the things that I do are unorthodox. I remember when I didn't have money to go back to school. So I printed out I created a PDF of a degree. And I kept registering for class even though I didn't have the money. And soon things began to change. Within just a few months' time, I went from not having the money to having the money. Why did it happen? I was working, pretty much the same type of work. But the subconscious mind, when you train the subconscious mind to have the thing that you have in mind, right? You got to have it in your mind before you have it in your hand. When you do that, when you train the mind and do that consistently, you're going to have the thing that you want. Russell Wilson knows that. High performers know that. The average social media troll doesn't. So you can decide which one you want to be. You can be like the troll, or you can be like a Russell Wilson. So thank you so much for tuning in to the Blueprint Radio podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to Blueprint Radio. For more information on Martin Williams coaching and products, please go to guidedexpressions.com or visit me on Facebook as well as Instagram.